Yeah, that's what that's what they told me. They said, you'll become a better actuary because actuaries need to understand management and prioritization and change and resilience. So all of those things, it wasn't all about the technical, but they said, yes, rounding out on your softer skills will make you a better actuary. And I found that to be true.
Hi, Neil. So welcome to the channel. So first, can you please introduce yourself to our audiences?
Hi, V. Thanks for having me today. So my name is Neil Duffy. I work at Canada Life. My role there, I head up the pricing for our group retirement business, which means I price our defined contribution plans as well as pension risk transfer, which is annuities for pension plans. So I've been at Canada Life for 6 years, and prior to Canada Life, I actually worked at Manulife for 25 years before that. And in Manulife, I worked different parts of their Canadian division. I worked through their insurance business, their group business. And after I became an actuary, I went to Indonesia to become the chief actuary of Indonesia. That was very early on in my career.
Wow, that's great. And I guess this is why I have you here today to share about your experiences working in Indonesia, in Asia in general. So you became an expert fairly early in your career. Like, did you already finish your FSA first? And then you decide to just like, hey, it's time to make a change, or like what made you decide to go to Asia to work?
Yeah, I had just finished my exam, so I just become a fellow, and we had a baby. So this is like basically within the last year we had a baby, and I hadn't thought about it actually. Like you would see these notifications for roles in our company. And I actually ignored it. So it came up, I ignored it. I thought, why would I do that? And later someone came back to me and they approached me and they said, we think you would be good for this job. You've been identified as someone who might, be good for this job. Would you consider it? And so at the time what they said to me was, you can just talk to them, and you can if you just say that you're going to go to the next step, it doesn't mean that you're committing to going to the job if they hire you. So why don't you just explore it? So there's no reason why I wouldn't explore it. So I came home and I talked to my wife, and Leslie said, well, I've never wanted to go to Toronto. We were in Waterloo. We always talked about going to Toronto. And she said, I don't want to go to Toronto. So it started out maybe more like a joke, like, would we go to Indonesia? And I said, but it's expatriate and we would come back after 2 to 3 years. And she said, oh, okay, sure. Let's think about it. So we actually started thinking about it. And I went to the next step of talking to them. And the more I heard about it, the more interested I was. It was interesting to learn about the opportunity, to think about how I would, how it would be fun for my family, how it would be, good for my career. And when I first started off, I didn't consider the opportunity. Why would I do that? And the more I heard, I was having trouble to answer why would I not do that. So my perspective changed to really consider the opportunity.
I see. So like it must be very different living in Canada and Indonesia. Like, did you experience a culture shock?
Yeah, there was definitely a culture shock. So, and there's many differences there. I remember, so they sent us to see Indonesia first, just to make sure. And it was something that they allowed. It was called a look-see trip. You went to go and look at the country and see what it would be like to live there. And I remember getting off the plane. My first thing was, wow, it's so hot there. It was just the climate was so different. And we studied the culture. We tried to learn about it before we went to visit. But no, living there was quite different than living in Canada. And I was born in Canada. I lived, in Toronto. I grew up in Toronto. So it was a very different experience for me. Everything about Asia was just very different and unique and fun. So yeah, the culture there was just very different. In the work environment, when I landed there and started working, the culture of how they do work is actually very, very different in Indonesia and Asia, I think, in general. So it was something we definitely had to get used to. The concept of like confrontation, or just how direct people in North America could be compared to people in Asia, was very different. And we learned about that. We were taught about that, before we went. Just be very aware of how you interact with people. So there was things that we took for granted, but we learned, right? So we became, part of in the office there. I went to the office. I became a senior management person there, and I learned how to interact with the people. I had an Indonesian staff that reported to me. We learned over time how things worked, and it was just a wonderful experience. We gained so much from it.
That's great. So would you say that like how you work, like the people at the office, that was like the main differences in terms of working between like North America and Asia, or is there something else in terms of like the process? Anything in general.
Yeah. So first of all, like when I went from Canada to Indonesia, it was a smaller office there. So the first difference was, could have been a difference that I could have experienced in Canada, was just going to a smaller company. So being part of a smaller company, you get involved in so many things, right? Like your job is a bigger job, but the numbers are not as big. So I did find the company to be similar. Like there was probably many similarities about how they ran their business. And since it was a joint venture of a North American company, they tried to, implement North American, the way we did things at Manulife in Canada. So many of the things were not totally different there when I went to experience, the work environment. Yeah, the work environment was similar in the way that they did work. It was a smaller company, but what I did find was there was in the insurance market in North America was much more mature and much more advanced than Indonesia. So some of the products that we worked on were things that I had seen in Canada many years before that. So the technical aspects of the role were quite different, but the work environment was similar. The obvious thing for me was English was not everyone's first language. Maybe at the management level and above, you were expected to be able to speak English, but below that, English was not very common. And I tried to learn Indonesian. We actually had an Indonesian teacher that came to our house once a week to try and teach us Indonesian. So I studied the language, and that was never, my goal was never to be able to, because we were only there for 2 years. My goal was never to be able to operate, to be able to speak Indonesian in business, but it was to be able to interact with people and to understand a little bit more if we went shopping, and to be able to talk to some of the staff that reported into me. So the language was definitely something that was very different, right? It slowed things down. Sometimes it took a little bit more time to understand what the issues were.
I see. So like, did you have an option to actually extend your time in Asia, or maybe going to another different country, or it's always the assignment is like, okay, you're going to be in 2 years in Indonesia doing whatever XYZ that was set out, and that's it, and then you would come back?
Yeah, my contract there was to stay there between 2 and 3 years. Now, when we went there was actually some unrest in Indonesia. So we actually experienced some political strife in the country that was not targeted to expatriates, but it made the country just a little bit different to live in. So we ended up, instead of staying, as we would have stayed a little bit longer, like maybe 3 years, we ended up leaving after 2 years. I did look to see if there was an option to stay somewhere else in Asia, but it didn't present itself to me at the time. It is hard, because you leave your home, which means you have to deal with all kinds of logistics back home. What do you do with your house and your cars and things like that? So once you've left your family and your house and your country behind, you want to stay there as long as you can. But it was, so once you leave, it was difficult to extend my stay. I couldn't stay much longer in Indonesia. And so it was time to come back after 2 years.
I see. Sometimes it's just things happen and just happen.
That's right. Some things just happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So was it difficult for you to adjust when you went back to work in Canada, or it was like kind of seamless experience?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, coming back to Canada was, some people say it's a bigger culture shock when you return than when you go. Personally, I found that we knew what to expect, but you certainly miss it. So when you're in Asia, I found the work was exciting and challenging, and I did things there that I wouldn't have done for many years. So I found I got exposed to so many things in my job in Indonesia that then I came back to Canada, and I was now back. I actually got a promotion to come back, but my job actually felt smaller because it was like a higher title job in a large business where I was responsible for, being the valuation actuary of a large block of business. But I didn't see the same breadth that I saw in Indonesia. So sometimes the work you come back to is like maybe it was more exciting in Asia. And of course, the personal experiences of just being in Asia and being able to travel and experience the culture in Asia was very exciting. So you come back and it's not as exciting when you come back to Canada. So I found that, and just as I found it really hot when I went there, I became very used to the climate there. And then when I came home, it was like really cold. I actually came home in the winter, and I found that I had to find something I loved about winter. So we started like winter sports. I skied as a kid, so we started skiing again and things like that, just to fall in love with winter again.
Mm-hmm. I've been staying in Canada for like over 17 years now, and I still don't really enjoy the cold.
You have to do something you like. You have to do something that you like in the winter. That's my advice.
Yeah, I feel like maybe sleeping in a cozy blanket on a warm bed is my favorite activity in the winter. Yeah. So how did the experience help or not help with your career in general, now that you like have over 20 years of working experience and you can see the entire trajectory from this?
Yeah, when I went there, I had lots of conversations. I had people that I went to as mentors, and I said, what do you think of this? What will it do for my career? And the one thing they sold me on when I went was they said it's going to introduce you to management and senior management, and those are things that I wouldn't have seen for a while. So in Canada, I was very much a technical specialist. I was very good at Access. I used to do pricing on Access, and I found when I went there, I now had to teach people. I had to run a department. So the things that I learned there were very good for me because they helped me think more about like just a different path, which was more on the management side. And so that was very much a plus for me. It was if you go to Asia, you need to think about what it is that you're going to get out of it. And what I was also told is in Indonesia or in Asia in general, like the products are not as advanced. Like I said earlier, the products are not as advanced, and some of the technical things are more. You'll learn more in North America. So they clearly said to me, if you want to stay and learn more technical things, you should stay in Canada if that was your goal. If you actually want to, focus on these other skills for a couple of years, that's what I got out of it. Was I came back. I would say I didn't learn many technical things. Like I didn't advance much technically when I was in Asia, but I advanced very much from a management point of view, as well as just adapting to change and being more resilient in a different environment. Those are good life skills that'll help with anything.
Yeah, so I would say it's more like the development of the soft skill, and then maybe like the business mindset, the management experience, that like the main thing that you got from this experience. And I think it's very important for like the future, like the actuary of the future, to like develop both technical and soft skill at the same, like as well.
Yeah, that's what they told me. They said, you'll become a better actuary because actuaries need to understand management and prioritization and change and resilience. So all of those things, it wasn't all about the technical, but they said, yes, rounding out on your softer skills will make you a better actuary. And I found that to be true.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, would you advise people to become an expat, or maybe at the beginning of their career, or like the middle of their career, or later of their career? Do you have any advice for people who consider this as a path?
Yeah, I did it early in my career, and it served a very specific purpose for me. If you do it later in your career, you've already had lots of training, and you might do it for different reasons. And sometimes the reason might just be fun, just to go and to travel and to see part of the world. But I found it to be very beneficial at the beginning of my career, and it opened up my eyes to just things that I liked, and you learn more about yourself. So I found it to be helpful for me in the middle of my career, but I think you can do it anytime. What I would say is it depends on what your situation is. So this role did kind of present itself to us, to me and my family, and at the time it was a good time for us. All of our parents were healthy. My wife had just had a baby, so she was on maternity leave. So she was actually happy to extend her maternity leave. And the situation was right for us. Had it been, 10 years later, our circumstances would have changed, and personally, we couldn't have done it. So it has to fit in it has to fit in with your personal circumstance at the time, and it did for us. But yeah, I don't feel like I have a magic answer as to when's the best time. It's going to very much depend on the situation.
Mm-hmm. So, last but not least, do you have any final advice for people who would like to become an expat?
Yeah, I would say make sure you understand your situation, what your readiness is to go to this. I remember when I went, they actually made us go through basically counseling. We went and talked to someone about all the stress related to being in a different country. So we wanted to understand, because what they said to me was, they said, Neil, you're going to like it because you're going to go to work, and work is challenging, and life for you will be the same. It'll be different products and different people that you work with. But the bigger test was my wife going to like it. And I remember after my first interview with my new boss, he said to me, Neil, I know you can do the job because, people in North America are saying that you can do this job, but I want to talk to you on this weekend, and I want your wife to be on the phone. And so he wanted to understand that she was going to be happy there, because if your spouse or your significant other comes with you and they're not happy and they're not engaged, it can actually be very stressful for the situation. So make sure you understand your own personal situation, and that you're that you understand how you're going to deal with stress, and whether the situation is right for you. So that's one piece of advice. The other advice I'd give is make sure you understand the career implications. That be specific. I saw people that would go to Asia sometimes it could be a lateral move, or it could be a move that didn't give them anything. That if they went to become a technical person in Asia, where they could have stayed being a technical person in North America, it may not have given them something, but it may have gotten them home, or gotten them to a location where they wanted to go. So just make sure you have a good understanding of what the career benefit is of going. You should also just understand, is it something that just on your personal bucket list? Is it something that you'll have fun doing, right? Is it going to be fun for you or stressful for you? We found it very fun. It was just an exciting new culture. We traveled and we tried to learn the language. And so we did many things like that. That was just, a great experience. We look back at it so fondly. The other advice I'd give is make sure you understand how you're going to go back. So I went with a large company, and I had a contract with them, and they were going to send me back, and they had a very known reputation for how they managed expatriates. So I knew they had a program and they had dealt with it. And so if you're at a company that has never dealt with it, just be careful. Or if you're or if you're actually going to a brand new company, if a company in Asia or somewhere else is hiring you brand new, you don't know much about the company. So just make sure you understand the situation you're getting into, and then make sure you understand how you're going to get home. So I had a guarantee of coming home. And I had a company that had a reputation of sending people and treating them well, human resources and the support they provide, just in terms of how they compensate you, where you live. There's so many important factors about how you are treated when you're there. So just make sure you understand all those implications. And then the last advice I give is make sure, try and immerse yourself into wherever you go. So, in our case, we actually chose to live more locally in Indonesia. There was an area, a neighborhood that most expatriates lived. It was actually a little further away from the office, but we chose to not do that. We actually wanted to live a little bit more in Indonesia. So, make the best of it while you're there. Try and immerse yourself in the culture. Try and learn the language if you can, and that'll enhance the experience. I found we gained more respect by trying to really understand the people and the language and things like that. So that helped us greatly as well. Yeah, that's it. I no regrets. We had a great time, and it was great I thought it was great for my career. Financially, it was good. It was lucrative to go. So that's nice as well. So that's why when I say why would we not go? It was interesting. It was good for the career. It was good. Money was good. The financials were good. So everything about it was good. You miss your family. It was hard to leave my family, but it was temporary. So we got to come back, and we had a provision where we would go back once a year just to visit our homes and our family. And I visited the office when we came home. But we really enjoyed it. I would do it again if we could.
Yeah, those are great advices, and I'm glad you have like a great experiences from that. And yeah, for sure, like it's always make the most out of it, because like that's like you say, I think it's changed, like have a significant positive impact to your career and also your personal life, and that is really like important for everyone. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, V.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks again for being on the channel today, and then share with us about your wonderful experiences and all of the great tips and advices. Yeah. Thank you so much, Neil.
All right. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah. Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye. Hey, can I say one more thing?
Oh yeah, of course.
Hey, V, I think this channel is great. And I wish it existed when I was, becoming an actuary, because you actually cover so many great things. And you answer so many questions for people that are wondering about it. So I think what you do is great. Keep doing it.
Yep. Thank you, Neil. I will put this in the blooper.
Okay.
Behind the scene.